You ever wonder why some chords seem to fit together and others just sound wrong? It's not magic, it's a simple pattern. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to use a simple chart to build your own chord progressions for songs, jamming, or even writing your own music. Real quick, if you don't already know who I am, my name's Wade Collins and I run Guitar Fastlane, a worldwide online guitar school. I've been playing, performing, teaching, and writing songs for over 20 years. I've played on many stages, in bands, and solo, and even recorded and mixed albums. But enough about me, let's get to the lesson. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can do this. The first way is going to be using our scale chart that we've created, and another way is using the circle of fifths. But first, we need to talk about what a musical key is. A key is basically a group of notes and group of chords that sound good together. And we can find this by looking at the step pattern of a scale. So for the major scale, we have a step pattern of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So we've made a scale diagram for you to follow along with, and this follows the major scale step pattern. So we're going to play in the key of G, and if you look at this table, you see that we start with G as our first one, and then if we move up a whole step, we have A, another whole step would be B, and then a half step from that is C, whole step up would be D, another whole step would be E, another whole step would be F sharp, and then if you took another half step up, you'd get back to G again, which would be the octave. So the whole pattern would repeat all over again. So once you've filled in this chart, you'll see that we have the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. And all of these are in the key of G. And that's because G is our first degree of this scale right here. So all of those notes will sound good together in this key, if you're playing the key of G. If you look at the bottom part of this diagram, you'll also see which of these scale degrees, or which of these notes, can be played as a major chord or a minor chord. So in the key of G, you'll see that we can play a G major chord. You can see that by the capital M, which is in blue. You can play an A minor chord. You can play a B minor chord, C major chord, D major chord, E minor, and then F sharp diminished, which I'll show you in a future lesson because diminished chords are kind of strange. So all of these chords, you'll notice they sound pretty good together. We've got G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, and E minor. And again, there's also the F sharp diminished, which I'll show you in a future lesson. So in this key of G major, you know that we've got the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp that fit together. And we just listed out all the chords that fit well together. Hey, if you're enjoying this lesson, do me a quick favor, hit that like button. It helps me know what to create for you next. Thanks so much, and let's get back into it. So how can we use this to create our own songs or be in a jam session and confidently know we're going to pick chords that are going to sound good together? Well, there are some really common chord progressions which are used in so many different famous songs that you know. And the first most common one is the 1-4-5 progression. So if you look at the top of this diagram, you'll see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Those are called the scale degrees. So scale degree number 1 is G, that's our root note. So if we play the G major chord, that's our 1. Our 4 would be C major, and 5 would be D major. So if you play the chords in that order, you'd be playing a 1-4-5 chord progression. So G major, C major, D major, so 1-4-5 chord progression, and you notice it all sounds really good together. So you can use that just like that, or 1-4-5 is also commonly used for 12-bar blues. Another very common chord progression would be 1-5-6-4, and this one you can play in different orders. You could play 1-6-5-4. But the most important thing is knowing that we're using scale degrees 1, 4, 5, and 6. And again, play around with them in different orders, but those 4 scale degrees and chords sound really good together, no matter what key you're in. So in the key of G, that would be the chords G major, D major, E minor, and C major. And listening to that, you might be able to actually just think of some songs that you already know that use those chords. For me, it makes me think of the song Wagon Wheel, which is a very popular song. So again, you don't have to play 1, 5, 6, 4. Try playing, let's say 1, 6, 4, 5. It's just that combination of 1, 4, 5, and 6 sound really good together. I'm going to show you one more common chord progression, and this will be 2, 5, 1. So 2 in the key of G major would be A minor. The 5th degree chord would be D major. And the 1st degree is G major. So we got A minor, D major, and G major. And notice these sound pretty good together too. So there you go. There's 4 different very common chord progressions that you can use, and that's just with the key of G. So you can see how it can be really helpful using this scale chart. You can plot out all the notes that are in the key. You know, all those notes will sound good together and which notes fall into that scale. So the G major scale, we have the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. And you'll also know which chords are in that key. So which chords will sound good together. And then you can use these common chord progressions to pick out certain chords which will really sound good together and which are common in the most popular songs that you know. So try taking this scale chart and plotting different keys in here and finding out which chords sound good together. Just follow that step pattern for the major scale. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So what's another way that we can do this? Well, one other way is using the circle of fifths, and this makes it really simple for you. So when you're looking at the circle of fifths, you want to look at the key that you're starting in. So for us, we're going to use the key of G major again. So looking at this diagram, you want to look at it in 3 slices. So your middle slice will be the key that you're in. So that would be where you see the G major note, the capital G, and the E minor. So that's your middle slice. You're going to have another slice on the left side and the right side. So that's the slice with the C major and D major. So those are your 3 slices for this key. And then you'll also include the F sharp note in there too, which is kind of off on its own. So that's your diminished chord. So if we got these 3 slices here, we know which chords and which notes are in the key right away. You don't have to plot it out. You don't even have to know the major step pattern for the scale. So we know, okay, we've got the G major chord, D major chord, C major chord by looking at that outer darker circle. And then the inner circle tells us that you have the A minor chord, E minor chord, B minor chord, and then like I mentioned, off to the right on that inner circle, you have the F sharp diminished chord. So you remember that that note's also included. So again, we can follow the exact same stuff that I recommended before. So we could do a 1-4-5 pattern. And when you're looking at the circle of fifths, if you're moving in a counterclockwise direction, you're moving back a fourth. So from the G chord to the C chord, that's a fourth. If you go in the clockwise direction, you're moving up a fifth. So if you go from the G chord to the D major chord, that's a fifth. So if we wanted to find the 1-4-5 chord progression, you'd start at the G note or the G major chord, and then you'd move counterclockwise to C major. So you know you're going 1-4, so G to C. And then to get the 5, you know that the 5 chord is the D. So we'd play G, C, and D. G, C, D. That's the 1-4-5 chord progression. Now what if we want to do the 1-5-6-4 chord progression? So to do that, again, we're looking at our 3 slices here in the circle of fifths, and the middle slice is always the key that you're in. So we're in the key of G major, or the relative minor key is E minor. So we're going to start with the 1 again, which would be G major. Now we're going to go to the 5. Remember, if you go clockwise direction in the outer circle, that's your 5 chord, which would be D major. And then our 6 is in the inner circle. It's your relative minor, which would be E minor. And then remember, the 4 is counterclockwise from the root note, which is C major. So just by looking quickly at this diagram, we figured out this next chord progression. So it'd be G major, D major, E minor, and C. So the exact same thing that we did before with that scale chart, but with this, it's a little bit easier to figure it out. Now, let's do the 2, 5, 1 chord progression. So to figure this out, we're gonna look at a root note again. So a root note is G. Of course, the next step up, our second degree, would be A. So the first chord will be A minor. Since that A is in the inner circle, you know it's a minor chord. So that's our 2. And then our 5, remember, is clockwise direction in the outer circle from the root note. So root note's G, you move counterclockwise, 1 position, you get to D. So our first chord's A minor, that's the second degree. Then we have D major. And then we're gonna go back to the root note, which is G, or a root chord. So our 2, 5, 1 progression is A minor, and then D major, and then G. So A minor, D major, and G. So that's just a quick example of how you can use the circle of fifths to apply all the same stuff. You can see which notes are in the key that you're playing, what the relative minor and major keys are, and you can see which major and minor chords fit together in that key. You can also use this to take the common chord progressions and quickly find out what those chords would be. Whether you're trying to write your own music and you started out with a couple chords and you're thinking, okay, which other chords will sound good with this? You don't have to guess anymore. You can look at the circle of fifths, you can look at the scale chart, and you can figure it out right away. Again, this was just a very quick intro to the circle of fifths. If you feel like you don't have it completely understood yet, don't worry about it, because I'm gonna have another lesson which will go very in depth and make sure that you're confident in how to use this circle of fifths. You've made it this far, so I know you're serious about improving your guitar skills. Why not keep the momentum going? Hit subscribe to make sure you don't miss our future lessons, and then click on your next lesson right here. I think you'll love it. I'll see you over there.